Hello and welcome to another Fabula Ultima video. This is going to be a different one than I've done before. This one's a tier list. So my idea behind this is I'm going to rank each of the classes in Fabula Ultima by how well their skills kind of will help other classes. So I've gone through each class individually, and each one in its own right is good, and they have like good features. I'm not trying to say they aren't, but some classes are more helpful to other classes than others. So, for example, if I start as an Arcanist, how good is the Chimerist, say, for example? So, like, I'm not doing it everything from the Arcanist perspective and then everything from Chimerist or something like that. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to look at the skills in general, see generally how well they would work with other classes, and tier them like that. So the reason behind this is I want to give people A, my opinion, and B, a list of what you could spec into later. So like if you look at my builds and you really like one, say, and you want to play as it, you'll have an idea of what to start with, but after you start maxing these classes, you might not know where to go next. So by making a tier list like this, I can kind of talk through my thoughts on where I think you can go next, basically. So we're going to start with the Arcanist. So let's bring up, do I have it open? No, that's Weapon Master. I've gone all the way wrong. Okay. Guardian, Fury, Entropist, don't go too far. Arcanist. So, zoom out a bit. So, like, I've gone through, like, the Arcanist in depth, but basically, to really quickly go over the skills, Arcane Circle only works when you dismiss an Arcanum, so because that's an Arcanist only thing, that's not a skill that kind of works well with others. Arcane Regeneration, again, needs an Arcanum. Bind and Summon is special, so I'll talk about it in a bit. Emergency Arcanum is again Arcana, and being able to do Arcanism rituals is a bit mixed. Okay, so 3 out of the 5 instantly off the bat don't help other classes specifically. Like, so if you're a Darkblade, for example, it doesn't matter like that you can recover hit points when you summon an Arcanum, because you're more interested in like being a better Darkblade, for example. But the Bind and Summon is special. So there are different Arcanum that do different things that actually do play well with others. So, for example, if you, where is it? This one, Arcanum of the Gate, gives you bonuses to your magical defense, and it lets you teleport. Like, that's very unique. And like, there's not really a class specifically that needs a teleport, but bonus to magic defense doesn't hurt. When you recover hit points, you recover 5 extra hit points with this one. There's one, where is it? Bonus to defense. Where was... Yeah, Arcanum of the Sword. Your attacks deal 5 extra damage, and your attacks are treated like having no type. So this, for example, if you were a melee attacker using a sword, for example, it doesn't, like, this would synergize well. So you can use the Arcanum of the Sword by using Bind and Summon to actually make kind of good kind of Arcanist choices as another class, or from another class. And again, Ritual Arcanism, the rituals depend on the Arcana you have that you've bound. And it's, say, for example, to use this sword thing again, you've got Conquest, Heroism, and Leadership. So anything that needs the other ones, like, you know, if you want to be like a heroic swordsman, for example, you could do rituals that are kind of heroism based. So this is a reason that the Arcanist can work really, really well with others. But to give it an actual tier ranking, I'm going A rather than S. So the reason I'm going with A, like I ummed about B, but the reason I'm going with A is that the Arcanum are really good. Like, let's put this on the other side just so we can see, keep the tier up. The Arcanum are really good, so you can use this with so many different classes, but I'm not giving it S tier, mainly because apart from when you start the game, you can't choose what Arcanum you get. They're completely dependent on your campaign and your DM. If you take it at character creation, you can pick one. If you don't take it at character creation, you can't. So if you want a specific Arcanum, you'll have to talk to your DM, and there'll be like a quest to get it. And if you don't start, so that's why I bumped it down from S. otherwise, like, Bind and Summon is an S tier ability to be able to interact with people, but the Arcanist isn't because of those limitations. Right, so that's the Arcanist. Moving on, we have the Chimerist. We might eventually get to it. So consume means if you have an arcane dagger or flail weapon equipped, when you deal damage to creatures with a spell, you recover mind points. This is enormous. Like, if you're a spellcaster, like any spellcaster, like you could be like an Entropist, an Elementalist, doesn't matter. If you damage someone with a spell, and you probably will have an arcane weapon, getting mind points back means you'll be able to cast more, because you're constantly going to want to be dealing damage and you'll constantly get mind points back. So this is enormous, right? Feral speech, the fact that you can understand the speech of beast monsters and plants is pretty cool. It doesn't specifically make other classes better, but it doesn't hurt. So pathogenesis is only when Chimerist spells, so that doesn't really help other classes. Ritual Chimerism doesn't either, but Spell Mimic lets you be able to cast other spells, right? So you can like bolster different spells. Like, that doesn't make, say, an Entropist better, being able to do beast spells, but Consume alone is just incredible. It's kind of necessary for any spellcaster, being honest. So I would put Chimerist at A tier again. Like, I'm not putting it S tier because most of this doesn't help, but Consume is so good. Like, for a spellcaster, it's just that alone. Again, like, this is an S tier skill, but everything else doesn't really lend itself properly to other classes. Right, the Darkblade. Darkblade, when you deal damage to one or more creatures, if you have a bond towards those creatures, you recover hit points and mind points, right? Most characters won't have bonds towards people, and most of at least the core book classes at least, don't create bonds towards creatures very well. The Darkblade does this. So this doesn't really play well with others. Darkblood, when you're in crisis, you gain resistance to dark and poison damage. Again, that's cool for a Darkblade, doesn't really help anyone else specifically. Heart of Darkness creates the bond that Agony uses, so that doesn't help much. Painful Lesson lets you perform the study action on your creature. So this I've used with the Lawmaster, but like, this is a very specific thing because the Lawmaster gets bonuses to study. So this does play with the Lawmaster quite well, but kind of no one else, because like, you can study anyway, but this is just a free ability to study during a turn. Like, it's not great. And then Shadow Strike is the Darkblade's kind of weapon of choice to be able to attack, but it's its own action, so it's not like you're taking an attack action and then you can add all this stuff to it. You're performing Shadow Strike, which then you use as a free attack. So it's its own special thing. So for that reason, Darkblade gets a D. Like, I'm sorry, it does. Like, the Darkblade itself, awesome class. Not saying Darkblade is a D class by any means. It just doesn't play well with others. So like, if you have like, say, a Fury or something and you're wondering what to do, you may want to skip Darkblade and go for other classes in this list. Moving on, next is Elementalist. This comes to no surprise, the Elementalist is really good. So Cataclysm means when you cast a spell with a duration of instantaneous, and that's not an Elementalist spell, it's any spell. If you have an arcane weapon equipped, which you probably will, you can increase the total MP cost, and when you do, it deals more damage, right? Any spellcaster that does this will benefit from Cataclysm, right? It's just great. Elemental Magic is just gaining extra magic, which is great. Magical Artillery, you gain a bonus to when you cast an offensive spell. If you have an arcane weapon equipped, you gain a bonus to your magic check equal to skill level times 2. Like, that's fantastic. Again, it's any spell, so yeah, all spellcasters help with this. Ritual Elementalism is just extra rituals, and Spellblade means if you're like a melee attacker, you can use your melee weapons hit dice to calculate casting spells. So this gives you options in melee to cast spells. So that alone easily puts Elementalist at the S tier. Like, it just does. Like, there's very little the Elementalist can't do to help any kind of build you've got. The only thing I can really think of is if you're like a ranged attacker, really. Oh no, but you can even use a bow, so even that works. So yeah, the Elementalist is just great. Easy S tier. let's move on. Entropist. So, the way the Entropist works, after you suffer damage, you can recover mind points. This is great. Most classes in the game use mind points to do stuff. There's things like the Symbolist, which uses inventory points instead. But this is good almost all round. Entropic magic is your Entropist spells, so that's its own thing. Lucky 7, basically it means that you start with a dice, the number 7. When you roll anything, you can replace any number on that dice with that 7, but the number you have becomes the number you replaced. So like say if you rolled a 7 and a 2, say, you can swap the 2 for a 7, that becomes a critical success, but now your new number's 2. So this can change anyone's skills from any class into a possible success or a possible crit. So this works with everyone. Ritual Entropism is just Entropist rituals that doesn't really synergize well with other things. And then Stolen Time means you can either cause slow, you can make people recover from slow, you can perform the inventory action for free, or you can make an ally attack that hasn't attacked this round take their turn immediately after yours, right? Which in itself doesn't make other classes better. It makes your group better, but doesn't really make other classes better. So for this reason, the fact that I was torn from this one, being completely honest, because like absorb MP is great, but you don't you can't reliably suffer damage, right? Because monsters hit at random in this game. So I was thinking between A and B, but just because of how good the Arcanist and the Chimerist is, I'm going to put Entropist at B, just to give it that mix. But it's like an A or B, like it's really good. Right, moving on. Fury. As long as you're in Crisis, you deal skill level times 2 extra damage with attack spells, arcana, items, or any other method. This is just free damage. Like, as long as you tell your team not to heal you when you're in Crisis, like this helps literally everyone deal more damage. Frenzy lets you trigger a critical success if you use a Brawling Dagger, Flail, or Thrown weapon, which has synergies with some classes, but not all of them. It depends entirely on the weapon. Indomitable Spirit, when you spend 1 or more Fabula points, you gain an extra benefit, so you can recover health, mind points, or a status effect. Every class in the game wants to spend Fabula points. This is how you gain experience to help you level up. So giving people an extra thing to recover from is going to be good for everyone. And then Provoke is like the Fury's kind of main kind of trick, where it makes people like be provoked against you, so they attack only you, which works with things like the Guardian, for example, but doesn't make like your rogue any better, for example. And then Withstand means that you just recover hit points, and you can choose Might or Willpower and treat it as being 1 dice higher until the end of your next turn. So it can buff like physical people as well. So for this, because you can deal extra damage, which helps everyone, like all of these apart from Provoke have a use, but they're not like an incredible use. I'm going to call Fury A, just not S. But if you disagree, let me know in the comments, because I always want to hear people's comments and I try to reply to most people. Cool. So Guardians next. Bodyguard. When you perform guard action and provide cover to another creature, that creature gains resistance. Right, this is a very Guardian thing. Not really good for other classes. Defensive Mastery. As long as you have a shield or martial armor equipped, damage you suffer is reduced by skill level. So if you have a shield or martial armor, this is great for anyone. But again, because you can't reliably get damage unless you go Fury and and get them to attack you, this might not proc all the time. So it's good, don't get me wrong, but you can't rely on it. Dual Shield Breaker is a Guardian thing to equip a special weapon. Fortress increases your hit points, which everyone will like. Having more hit points is good. And then Protect means that you can kind of interpose yourself between like danger, right, which is a very Guardian thing. So like the main things here are Defensive Mastery, which doesn't work all the time because you're not always taking damage, so a lot of the times it's just stuck there not doing anything. Fortress gives you extra hit points, but that doesn't actually make anyone any better. It just means they last longer. So I'm calling Guardian a C tier. It's not quite as selfish a class as the Darkblade is, but it doesn't play as well as with other classes, as well as like the Entropist or something like that. Moving on, we have Lawmaster. So, Flash of Insight, when you roll a 13 or higher on a check to investigate a creature or item location, you get a bunch of stuff, right? So, investigation is very much the Lawmaster's thing. It's not really other classes' thing, apart from that one Darkblade bit. So, it's not really, like, it doesn't really help other classes much. Focused permanently increases your mind points by skill level ×3. If you are a caster, this is incredible, but also a lot of other classes as well use mind points, so this plays very well with basically everyone, and it gives you an open check bonus using it if you use Insight and Insight, right? Knowledge is power. When you perform an accuracy check, you can place one attribute die with Insight. So if you want to be, or if you, say for example, if you're a spellcaster, you'll have high insight and you want to also be able to use weapons. This is a way to be able to get a higher dice for your weapon. So this works with everyone that uses weapons, basically. So you have, so it plays very well, because like as long as your insight is higher than either like might or dex or whatever your weapon will be, then you can use it, or you can even go insight for things like pistol. So that plays very well with everyone. Quick assessment lets you either reveal a trait of an enemy or learn a damage affinity. Like, it's very much a Lawmaster thing. It's good for the whole group, but it doesn't really make your other class better. And Train Memory lets you just perfectly recall any scene you visited within the last week, which again doesn't really help other people much. So it's a bit mixed, but the mind points, right, and the accuracy check are really good. Like, especially the mind points. That alone, like, every spellcaster especially wants extra mind points. So because of that, I'd probably end up putting the Lawmaster at a B tier. Because everyone, well, almost everyone can get extra mind points. And it just, lets you do your core spellcasting and skills more. So kind of powering through them because there's a lot to do. Orator's next. So Condemn is a skill like that. Either they lose mind points or suffer dazed or shaken. That doesn't really help your other classes. It's just an extra way to get mind point damage or conditions off. Encourage is a support skill that lets your friends recover hit points and get an extra dice size, which again doesn't really help your skills more. My Trust in You, when another player character performs a check, you can spend a Fabula point to invoke a trait or bond to let them reroll dice or improve the result of the check. This is awesome. I love like being able to spend Fabula points, but this doesn't help anyone else. Oh, it just doesn't help your own. This helps everyone else, but it doesn't help your other classes shine, which is what this tier list is. Persuasive, when you fail or erase sections of a clock that relies on charm, diplomacy, deception, or intimidation, you can do more, which works well with like if you can get like a Tinkerer's project going where you need to use some of that. That might be a way to synergize, but most of the time it's not. Unexpected ally, spend a Fabula point to make a non-hostile creature be helpful towards you, which is awesome and has a lot of uses, but like that doesn't make like your Darkblade any better, for example. So because of that, Orator goes to D tier. It's a good class, but it just doesn't make your other classes shine. Rogue. Cheap shot. When you hit a creature with an attack, if the attack only targeted that creature and they're suffering from status effects, you can have it deal extra damage. Extra damage is good, but that's a very specific set of conditions, so it might not always be relevant. Dodge means if you have no shields or martial armor, your defense is increased by skill level. So this, if you're a spellcaster, gaining 3 extra defense helps you. Like, it doesn't necessarily make you shine, like I said before, but it doesn't hurt. High speed lets you perform a free attack with a weapon or perform a hinder or objective action, and you get a bonus to the checks you do to do that. Which, like, there's a little bit of synergy for people that can do hinder and objective actions, but it's very much like a rogue thing. It doesn't bolster anyone else. See you later lets you spend a Fabula point to vanish from the scene and appear in another one, which, you know, is a rogue thing, so you kind of vanish from the scene. And Soul Steal means that you can either use Steal to get inventory points back or a special treasure, which doesn't really make other people any better in the team. So, like, I'm torn because, like, only dodge really is like a good one, and because, like, your defense score is a useful score, especially if you don't have shields or martial armor. Like, it helps, but because there's not much synergy with other things, I've got to call it a D tier. Like, I'm sorry, I just do. Like, again, this is my opinion. Rogue isn't a D tier class. It's just if you take other classes first, the rogue won't do that much for you compared to, like, some of the other classes. Sharpshooter. So, Barrage, when you do a ranged attack, you can spend mind points to either give it multi-2, or if you have multi-2, it goes up to multi-3. Which, like, is good, but the Sharpshooter is like the ranged class. So, like, if you were building a ranged character, you'd want to start with Sharpshooter anyway. So the chances of you wanting a ranged build where you don't start with Sharpshooter is very slim. So, like, this is going to be like a quick, easy one to kind of understand. Crossfire, again, when you do ranged attacks, you can spend mind points total to the accuracy check. When another creature performs an attack, not you, sorry, you can spend mind points to make it fail. Like, that's great, but it doesn't make other classes better. Hawkeye makes your next attack deal extra damage, or you can perform a free attack ignoring your high roll when you guard. Like, there's some Guardian synergy you could probably do because they like guarding, but not overly much, being honest. Ranged weapon mastery, again, you'd probably already be a Sharpshooter if you have ranged weapons, and warning shot means you can inflict shaken or slow or hit mind points off of someone if you make the attack deal no damage. So it's D. Like, it's a selfish class. Like, for ranged it's incredible, for non-ranged it's basically useless. Cool. Moving on, Spiritist. So we're getting there. Healing power. When you cast a spell that targets one or more allies, if you have an arcane weapon equipped, which you probably will if you're spellcasting, you may have each of those allies recover an amount of hit points equal to the skill level multiplied by the number of bonds you have. So, for example, you can get, like, defensive skills to, like, the Elementalist, Entropist, things like that, and because of this, they also heal, which is awesome. Like, it doesn't necessarily make you a better Elementalist or something like that, but it does synergize very well, so I really like it. Ritual Spiritism is a selfish thing that lets you do Spiritism rituals. Spiritual Magic is, that spellcasting for the Spiritist, so there's not much to say here. Support Magic, when you cast a spell that targets one or more allies, like Healing Power, if you have an arcane weapon equipped, which you probably will, like Healing Power, you can choose one of the allies you have a bond towards. If you do, that ally gains a bonus to the check they perform during the current scene. This is equal to the strength of your bond towards them. So this, again, is a free thing if you target your allies. So you can not only heal them, but be able to give them extra bonuses, which is cool. Like, no, who doesn't like free stuff? Especially when you're doing the skill anyway. And then Vis Magus, I never know how to pronounce it, Vi Magus. When you cast a spell, if you don't have enough mind points, you can choose to spend twice as many hit points instead. You can't do it if it reduces you to 0, and it doesn't let you recover hit points, right? So any spellcaster will benefit from this. So, like, I think it plays really well with other spellcasters, so I'm going to give it a B tier. No, shall I give it a B tier or a C tier? I'm torn again because like if you think about it, right? Yeah, I'm gonna leave it at C tier because like it's like you can enhance things that other things are doing, but say for example if you have an elementalist spell that targets an ally, this doesn't make that better. Like you don't have more MP to be able to do that more often. This just gives it extra stuff. So it's good, but obviously you have to cast spells, and not everyone casts spells as well. So I think a C is justified here. Next one is Tinkerer. Emergency item. Once per conflict scene, when you're in crisis, you can perform additional action on your turn, which must be the inventory action. Like this can save you if you're really low on health, but it doesn't really make other classes stronger. Gadgets let you pick between alchemy, infusions, or magic tech. Alchemy lets you throw potions, which doesn't really help much. Infusions do help, like a lot. They give you extra elemental damage options, so you can attack with like your kind of melee kind of attack or something like that, and then add like poison damage or something if you needed a new affinity. So that does actually play really well. And then Magitech, the second rank in that gives you like a magic cannon, which like if you don't have a weapon that can target someone, you can create one, which is useful, but like doesn't really play into other classes unless you're like a sharpshooter already, because it's a ranged attack, right? Potion rain is specifically when you create a potion that restores HP, not when you use a potion. So like your typical item potions, it doesn't count for, so it's a tinkerer only thing. Secret formula is when you create a potion on Magisphere, so again it's its own tinkery thing. And projects is, or visionary lets you do projects and they cost less and you get extra progress a day. So Tinkerer, the infusions work really well for stuff, but apart from that it's kind of mixed, so I don't know whether I want to call it a D tier or a C tier. Like the potions, if you go alchemy you can make damaging potions, so you can have other options, but I think the infusions is really good. So I think just because the infusions are good, I'm going to give it C, but it's between C and D, and I'm mainly only giving it C because I have more Ds, just to even it out. Wayfarer. Faithful Companion gives you an extra companion, which is a very Wayfarer thing. Like having an extra companion doesn't make your Darkblade better, for example, but it doesn't hurt. Resourceful means you recover inventory points after each travel roll, which is good, but unless you're an inventory point heavy kind of class like the Tinkerer or the Symbolist, it doesn't really play much. Tavern Talk lets you learn more about the world. Treasure Hunter lets you discover more when you're out, and well-trained means well-travelled means your travel rolls go down a dice size to a d6, which makes Treasure Hunter easier. So it's kind of a selfish class. It's going D. Just because it doesn't synergize well with everything else. And then everyone can kind of guess where the Weapon Master's already got to sit. Bladestorm means when you perform a melee attack, you can spend 10 mind points to either make it game multi or multi 3, which is kind of like how the Sharpshooter works, but with melee. Bone Crusher means when you hit a target with a melee attack that would deal damage, you can make it deal no damage. You can inflict dazed, weak, or attack mind points, which again, like for a melee class, it makes you be able to do extra stuff, right? Breach is incredible. It's 5 mind points. You can target a single creature with the attack, but if it's successful, it deals no damage, but you destroy either a shield, target's armor, or when they suffer damage from a source before the start of your next turn, deals extra damage to them. There's, apart from spellcasters, and even that it can work, targeting their shield or armor means that you can just hit more reliably, which is fantastic. Like, if they've got really heavy armor that doesn't do anything for their magic defense, it won't help like spellcasters, but you can get armor that does bolster that. So this will help everyone and is amazing. Counterattack means that whenever an enemy hits or misses you with an attack, if they roll an even number, you perform a free attack, but it only targets them and the high roll 0, right? So you can, like, this makes basically everyone be able to do more damage, and like you can like say I pick on the Darkblade a lot. It's just the first one in my eyesight when I look at this. So like if you're a Darkblade, you could be like, you know, you could like be edgy and be like, oh, you hurt me, take this, and like, you know, it's a very like it's a very rubbish like suggestion, but like you can use this to make it like your other classes seem better, because you're using your class weapon of choice to attack back. Melee weapon mastery means you get a bonus equal to skill level to all accuracy checks with melee weapons. So everyone who attacks in melee will need this. It's an easy S tier, right? Like the Elementalist. Like if you're a melee attacker, weaponsmith is the best to spec into. If you're a spellcaster, Elementalist will be. But this, again, like the idea of the tier list is how well they kind of synergize with other classes, right? So like Weapon Master would be a good choice for melee if you don't already have it, and so on and so forth. So I'm pretty happy with this list. Let me know in the comments what you think. If you disagree with me, if there's anything that you've spotted that I haven't, like, please feel free to let me know. But I think this is, for my opinion at least, a handy guide on if you are a class and you have a few classes picked at the start of the game, you're wondering where to go after you start maxing them. This is like a good suggestion that you can look into. But anyway, I've rambled on for long enough. Thank you all very much for watching, and let me know if you want more tier lists in the future. I'll make them, but I'm probably going to go back to covering the classes from the other books, and then after I've done that, add them to this tier list, and then keep going like that for a while until I at least run out of books. So anyway, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.